that I've seen since I've been here.
And speaking of players taking a jump, what have you seen from Mekhi?
Off the field, he's really maturing. And so we, for example, when we were on the road recruiting this cycle, he did a great job of getting the group together, making sure guys were meeting on their own voluntarily and coordinating. All the things that we talk about during the season as far as what we should be covering during their workouts, during their player workouts. So he did a great job as far as being the leader of that group in that sense. And so right now the challenge for him is going to see if he can take his body to the next level, and just like Emmett had to do. And so because there's no doubt about he has the breakaway speed and he has a competitive edge when he plays. And so the big challenge for him right now is focusing on his body. That's going to be the big factor for him. And so those are the two biggest jumps he's made. But as far as his skill set, as far as route efficiency, as far as his protection, as far as his rush skills, his ability to outrun the defense, his toughness, he's very impressive. He's going to continue to keep climbing that ladder.
When you say take his body to the next level, what's that picture look like?
That's a maturity thing, right? That's as a sorry, I'm sweating. That's as a young player. That you have to learn that, right? So there's one thing to for us as coaching as a staff to implement nutrition, implement the weight room and all those things, but on your off time, right? That's the next step for the maturity of athletes, not just Mekhi, but all athletes, all young players. They have to really dial in and to be really specific, especially guys that are fast twitch, high metabolism type of humans. That they have to really dial in and be focused and be disciplined.
Is there a target weight for Mekhi?
I think 195 to 205 is a good playing weight for him. I think that's a fair weight. And so the key is, can he maximize his speed and keep his power, right? So when you get under 190, that's when you have a little bit of concerns. But 195 to 205 is kind of the range he needs to be able to play at.
Where is Jamal Rule at as a true freshman, just in terms of being ready to go, and how do you rep him in this competition with the other guys?
One of the reasons why we love Jamal coming out of high school were because of his physicality and competitive edge, the way he ran the football in high school. That was very evident in tape. It was evident in person when I went to go watch him play. And the kid has a chip on his shoulder. He's kind of was, the leading rusher in North Carolina his junior year or sophomore year, and then to run over 200 yards against Providence Day in a championship game, and to really not get recruited, kind of was a slap in the face to the kid. And so an opportunity for us to believe in him, and now everyone on the staff, everyone on our team seeing why we believed in him. I think that's part of his attitude. So he's going to he's approached practice like that with the chip on his shoulder. And so right now he needs to learn football, right? Learn football. It's one thing. He's got to transition from being a high school football player to really learning the cycle of the snap, development of his eyes in the run game and in the protection game. So I think those are the big things for him right now. It's just the details of football is what he needs to learn, and he's doing a great job.
Is that what it takes, just in general, for a true freshman to be able to play at running back? Is just to know football, to understand what it takes, to understand the college game?
Correct. I think you could probably spot play a young freshman. As far as with their ability, but in order for us to rely on him, he's got to really be dialed into the details. And so I think that just takes repetition and experience. So he's getting some reps with the threes and the twos right now, and he's continuing to gradually grow. And so it's really the meeting rooms, it's the quizzing, it's all the things that off the field that are really going to help him mentally play faster.
Made that jump from year one to year two and what you've seen?
I look at him now as a real running back. Like last year he was really transitioning, and now his movements, pre-snap, how he gets aligned, his eyes, all those things, he's really truly bought into the position. And the big thing for him right now will continue to be staying on that path and running the ball inside. Right? That's going to be the thing he needs to really grasp. Everyone knows what he can do in space. We know what he can do on the perimeter. And his focus this spring is running behind his weight and becoming a really dynamic inside runner.
You mentioned the Genitone leave the room, then is he defense officially now?
No, he'll be doing stuff on offense with us as well. So we've had him a couple indie periods, making sure he's getting some carries. so he's doing back and forth, and so he's got a unique skill set. He's a big, powerful kid that can be utilized in short yardage. So, right now it's Quentin's role right now. I mean, obviously we're in spring; it's nobody's role, but Quentin's that guy right now. But we got to make sure that we have multiple people that can do it, and so Vince will get his opportunities for sure.
Obviously, you wouldn't turn down recruiting a 5-star running back, but it strikes me that a lot of the guys in your room have that chip on their shoulder, that maybe they weren't the highest recruited guys. How much do you appreciate that quality, and how do you hone that into something that can be productive in practice and in games?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the 5-star, the 4-star, 3-star, I get all that, but the reality is, do they have the traits that we were looking for, right? And so, yes, some of these kids were bypassed by the recruiting rankings and all that stuff. However, I think the evaluation is the evaluation. You know what I mean? And so I love the fact that these kids are motivated and they take it personal that they were overlooked. You know what I mean? You walk. We went to the high school clinic at PA. Myself, Coach Rule, and a couple other guys, and every guy was talking about Mekhi Nelson and that high school coach. How's Mekhi Nelson doing? How's he doing? How's the Scranton kid doing? You know what I mean? And so the Wilkes-Barre kid doing. So, there's definitely a chip on these guys' shoulder. I mean, Jamal Rule had no offers, before he came here. No Power 4 offers when he came here. So the fact that he's appreciative that we believed in him, you can see that in the way he practices.
How much does Emmett Johnson's example help those guys? They can look at a guy who built himself up year over year to get to the season he had last year.
It's interesting. It's one thing to talk about development, and one thing to as a coach, you want to say, here's what we believe in, here's the opportunities that are on the horizon if you do this, do that, and then all the kids watch them do it. You know what I mean? So it makes my job a lot easier, right? And Emmett's just been an example of. I remember from our first media talking about Emmett as a redshirt freshman spring. I think it was red for his second year, talking about where he needs to improve to the next spring, where he needs to improve, and he's continued to battle and fight and compete. And I think, that Emmett's second year as a full-time player here, that year he had to compete with Ramir and I forgot the other running back, but Dante. The year he had to compete, that turned him into the player that you saw last season. You know what I mean? Him learning how to compete and fight. Competition brings the best out of everybody, and the kid never gave up. If you watch Ramir Johnson, what he did against I remember at the beginning of the year, took 190 yards against Colorado down the sideline. Pinstripe Bowl, MVP of the Pinstripe Bowl. Ramir Johnson was no slouch. And then for Emmett to have to compete with him in camp and throughout the season, that's going to make you the player you're going to be. You know what I mean? That's what's most impressive about Emmett, that the ability to compete and want to compete. And so if you look at him at the combine, I think he was one of the only running backs to do all the drills. And I think it's been told to me by some NFL people that they're impressed by that he's not afraid of competition. I think that makes you a great player.
Coach Rule talked about maybe implementing more counter runs. What's that challenge with you and coaching that with the running back room after doing a lot of inside zone and duo last year?
I'm familiar with the NFL run game, and so my whole background is 21, 12, 11, duo, power, counter, outside zone, tight zone. So even in recruiting, when we recruit running backs here, we're preparing them for the NFL. So we're not a scheme run game. We are an NFL run game in the sense that we're going to implement all those runs throughout the spring. So those guys will be taught the read keys for all those runs. So, counter is something that we've been doing here for a long time. So there's not going to be anything skipped there. The kids will be dialed in how to read it and how to have familiarity with how to run it.
Who's leading the way pass blocking?
Quentin. Quentin's really he's phenomenal. He's done a great job. He's getting up in the line of scrimmage. He's stoning guys. He's using his size and body. He's done a heck of a job. They all have improved. All of them. They've all improved in pass protection. That's been the biggest challenge last season, is getting them to not only identify and see it, but also use the proper technique. Connor Booth and Jamal Rule, they've stood out the last couple weeks, last couple practices in pass protection. But Quentin has consistently been he gives us our offense a nice sense of security that he's going to go in there on third down and make the block.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.